tonight I'm making butternut squash soup. So butternut squash is one of my favorite fall squashes. I definitely prefer it over pumpkin. It's also easier to cook with. I can tell you from firsthand experience. So I'm going to flip this around so y'all can see better. Now, first of all, I have some butternut squash over here. What I did was I chopped the ends off of butternut squash, and then I halved it lengthwise and took out the seeds and the pulp. I scooped that out with a spoon. I'll take a picture. I took a picture of that earlier, and I'll post it in the comments. Y'all can see the prep work I did earlier. So after I halved and seeded the butternut squash, I brushed it with olive oil, and I put a little bit of salt. And hey, Katie, how are you? James is so excited to see you later this month. Okay, so I brushed it with olive oil, then did a little bit of sea salt and pepper on it, and then I turned it face down in a baking dish and stuck it in the oven at 425 for about 45 minutes. And then it was super tender after that, and it just scoops out really easily. You can see the skin just peels away from the squash. It's really tender, and so it's really easy to scoop out. So the butternut squash, I like the flavor better than pumpkin. I find it a little bit sweeter, and it's also easier to chop in half. It's easier to seed, and it's easier to scoop out once it's been cooked. So on all three ways, it's a lot easier to deal with. And I know firsthand because I made a ton of pumpkin puree last week or the week before. I don't remember. All my days run together now. Okay, so I also chopped up one apple. So I just cored and chopped up one apple. You can leave the skin on. The skin's pretty tender, so that doesn't make a difference. But if you prefer, you can peel your apple. And then I also minced 2 cloves of garlic. And remember, the cloves of garlic are the smaller ones inside the bigger heads. So don't use 2 whole heads. That'd be way too much garlic. Also had drizzled a little bit of olive oil in there, and I'm going to turn this onto medium right here, and I'm going to grab, I should have, okay, need a spoon. Alright, so I turned this onto medium, and we're just going to saute our garlic for about a minute and start to get all of those flavors released. That's smelling really good. And fresh garlic is definitely worth using instead of dried minced garlic. A lot more flavor to it. The aroma is just really good. I also have about a teaspoon each of ground sea salt and black pepper there for seasoning. Let that go. I made some dairy-free chicken soup for James over the weekend. I think maybe on Thursday I made that for James, and he liked that, so I'm going to make some more of that for him in the next couple days. I'm actually going to make this butternut squash soup dairy-free as well, with an option to add in a little bit of dairy at the very end, and that way James can try it as well and see what he thinks. Alright, so I am just going to go ahead and add the apple since the garlic's been going for a little bit. I'm also going to add our butternut squash here. Okay, I'm going to try to see. Oops. I'm actually going to go ahead and add some liquid too, since it's getting kind of hot. I'm adding in 3 cups of reduced sodium chicken broth. I didn't want our garlic to burn, so I went ahead and added that in there. I'm going to finish adding the rest of the butternut squash. I'm trying to get y'all a visual while I'm doing this. There we go. Roasting the butternut squash beforehand in the soup really brings out its flavor. You get kind of a caramelization and a lot more sweetness to it, which I really like. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, Katie, but any kind of soups are definitely a comfort food for me when I'm sick or have a little bit of a cold. So I can definitely send you my chicken and gnocchi soup recipe too. That's one of my favorite fall comfort foods as well. All right, so I'm just going to mix all of that in there. And I'm going to add our salt and pepper. Stir that in as well. I'm actually going to bump up the heat on this so we can get it to a simmer. And I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of maple syrup. And I'm actually going to do vanilla bean infused maple syrup. There's actually a vanilla bean in there if you can see it, instead of regular maple syrup for a little bit of a twist and kick to it. I'm doing that instead of adding a spice like cinnamon, which I'm fresh out of because I used the last of it making banana bread over the weekend for James. And then I just am not a huge fan of nutmeg, so I'm going to just skip that, and I'm going to add the vanilla infused maple syrup instead of the regular for a little bit of something extra in there. All right, so I'm going to bring this to a simmer, and then I'm going to simmer it for about 15-20 minutes, and then I'm going to use my immersion blender to blend it nice and smooth. And after that, like based on the thickness, I might add a little bit more chicken broth, just depending on how thick it is, and you can kind of judge by your taste too what you prefer as far as the thickness on your soup. And then I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil or butter at the end, and you can use dairy-free butter like we have on hand, or regular butter, so just kind of whatever your preference, maybe just like a tablespoon of butter or olive oil, and then blend that well again. And at the very end, after blending, I'm going to add a little bit of rosemary. I don't want that to get too crushed up, and rosemary is a little bit delicate, so it's good to add towards the end of cooking. So I'm going to add some rosemary at the end and just stir that all together. And then when I plate it, I'm going to add a little bit of dollop of mascarpone cheese on top of the hot soup, and that way that'll just melt and make it a little bit add a little bit of extra creaminess to it right before serving, but the whole batch will be completely dairy-free, and then it'll be optional whether you want to add the mascarpone cheese or not. So that gives us an option whether we just want to eat it plain or add a little bit something extra, but either way, the whole batch will be safe for James to eat. So I'm going to let this come to simmer, and then just let that go for about 15 minutes or so and blend it up, and I'll take pictures of it as it goes along and put it in the comments for y'all to see. But I don't want to bore y'all too much just letting the pot come to boil, so I'll just let y'all go. Hope you enjoyed the recipe. This I just love soups in the fall. To me, it's just very comforting to have like a warm, creamy soup. Any questions about what I added, just ask and I'll send you the recipe. Y'all take care. Have a great evening.